November 22nd, 2021 to order. Could we start with a roll call, please?
Director Roddick.
Here.
Director Decker for Director Lohman.
Here.
Director Clark.
Here.
Director Penrose.
Here.
Director Slater Carter.
Present.
Chair Dye.
Here. All right, then now we need to re-ratify Resolution 5-2021 for the continuation of...
Hey, Barbara, real quick, this is Rick. I think I'm on
good.
the phone, but can't.
Yay.
We can hear you, Rick.
Okay, I'm on the phone version because I'd have no idea why the link never works. It's the first time that's ever happened.
Are you okay with participating by phone?
Yes.
Okay. Well then, can you show Rick as attending the meeting?
Yes, Director Lohman.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So then let's re-ratify Resolution 5-2021 for the continuation of virtual/teleconference meetings per Assembly Bill AB 361 for the period of December 4th. Any further discussion? Can we have a roll call, please?
Director Roddick.
Yes.
Director Lohman.
Yes.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Director Penrose.
Yes.
Director Slater Carter.
Yes.
Chair Dye.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Could
Motion
you introduce?
passes.
Yes, thank you. Could you introduce the members of the staff who are on the call and then tell us about the employee anniversary today?
Yes, I have with me Tim Costello, Supervisor, Treatment and Operations and Collections. I have George Evans, a Finance Officer. And we have Susie from our Administration Department. And I think we have Keith Harvey, Operations. And this is me, Kishan Prativadi, General Manager. And we have Jeremy Humrais, General Counsel. And going on to our November employee anniversaries, we have Tony Young. He's a lead collections worker. And Tim is going to say a few words about him. We don't see him. He was actually taking a flight back. He was on vacation. Apparently the flight hasn't come on time, so he's not been able to participate. But then Tim is here to talk about it.
Well, Tony, me?
Yes. Yes.
Well, there you go. So Tony came to us. I think it was like 4 years ago. Is that right, Kitchen? Oh, I was so close. 5 years ago. So yeah, he's one of our go-to guys in the field. He's always got a smile on his face. He's always to work early or stays late or goes above and beyond all the time. He's a really great guy. Really rooted in this community. His daughters, went to school here, played basketball here. His wife's involved in the community. He went to school. He actually went to school on the other side of the hill, but he has been actively involved in this community for a number of years. So really good part of the team, really good employee. He's pretty much, a go-to guy in the field, in the collection systems, super outgoing, super friendly, and just a really good member of the staff. And, we're proud to have him working with us.
I must say my interactions with him have been very positive. Pleasure to do.
Well, and I want to thank him and for deciding to work for Sam. I think it was clearly a wise choice and a good fit.
Yep.
And it's congratulations to him and everyone else.
Thank you.
Anything further?
Nope, that's it on the anniversary part of it.
Okay, moving on to public comment. Do we have any members of the public who would like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, move on to the consent agenda. I would like to pull the minutes and bring them back for our next meeting. I think there's a couple things that we might want to revise. I don't think how people voted is correctly shown in the motion in those minutes. And I'd like to add a few lines after that vote as to the further discussion that we had.
So you could just move Chair Dye to table it to the next.
All right. Well, I have to make a motion to table it, or?
That'd be the better practice.
Okay.
I move that we continue the minutes till the next meeting.
Second.
Let's have a roll call, please.
Director Radek,
Yes.
Director Lohman,
Yeah.
Director Clark. Director Clark, you're muted.
Aye.
Director Penrose,
Yes.
Director Slater Carter,
Yes.
Chair Dye.
For the balance of the consent agenda, can I have a motion for that? Or is there any further discussion before I ask for a motion? If not, could someone make a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Kitchen, did you ever Chair Dye's vote? I know she was silent there. Did you actually ever get her vote?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry to interrupt.
I move that we adopt the consent agenda, except for the continued minutes.
Second.
Further discussion? We have a roll call, please.
Director Radek,
Yes.
Director Lohman,
Yes.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Penrose,
Yes.
Director Slater Carter,
Yes.
Chair Dye. I didn't hear you, Chair Dye.
Yes, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah, now it's good.
I'm not on mute.
You're not.
I am speaking up.
It's too soft. The voice is not very clear. Anyway, go ahead.
All right. Anything further there? Okay, moving on to regular business. Update on the NDWSCP program.
Okay, the NDWSCP program, which is the Non-Domestic Wastewater Source Control Program, is not new to SAM. We've been having this since 1991. The board adopted it in 1991, then did a revision in 1994, and then was brought back to the board again in 2019. So the latest is 19-01. That's the resolution which we all talk about, because that has superseded the earlier ones, which is the 2-94 and all that. So SAM has been doing all this non-domestic waste source control program since then, and we've been doing fats, oils, and greases, which is also a part of this program for quite some time. Permits were issued in the 90s and the early 2000s, and for some reason the permits did not get renewed, but the FOG program was still in place, except for the 2019 when there was a COVID, when the pandemic struck. We couldn't do that in that year, but we did it in the subsequent years, 2020 and 2021. We are continuing to do that. But we realized that a lot of these establishments which are covered by the FOG program or the part of the NDWSCP program, not all of the establishments have been included in this program. We realized that some of the member agencies do have these establishments in their area, but for some reason it was not communicated to SAM, or they did not get communication from the county, but they were still discharging into the SAM source system. And when we had these planned upsets in the last year in October, we began to investigate. We realized that there were a lot of people who were actually discharging, and we thought it's best to get this program in place. And then we started these discussions. And the board did adopt this on September 23rd, but subsequent to that, we had discussions and wanted to make some amendments, and therefore it's been brought back to the board. In our subsequent, in our earlier meetings, the board had given direction that the member agency managers and the general manager should meet and come up with a program which would be amenable to all the agencies, which would be acceptable to all the agencies. And here we are. We brought it to the board today, and we would like any discussions on this. Staff is here to answer any questions. And I also see some of the member agency managers are out here, and we could all jointly answer any questions.
I look forward to the discussion on this. I do want to make a comment, which is that the line in the staff report that says Chair Dye indicated that instead of a mandatory regulatory program, the member agencies could instead implement a voluntary program focused on education. That is far from what I proposed. We Kishan, you and I discussed this for actually hours. The idea was to have a binding agreement, a legal agreement, which would bind the various businesses to operate with best practices, would keep the option for testing if necessary, would require them to do reporting and so forth. So I want to make it clear that I certainly never supported or proposed a purely voluntary program. And at this point, I don't think there's any point in discussing that further, but I would just want to make that point. I'm pleased with what we're going to be discussing tonight. It's the proposal from all of the agency managers. And so I see Director Clark has his hand up, so you could speak to that.
Yeah, my comment is in these twice monthly reiterations of how we got to where we are. And I assume that they're going to continue. It always says accurately that SAM staff thinks that the non-domestic source program should be reinstituted. And I think it would be useful to also say that the board, which is never mentioned in that sense, also unanimously supports the reintroduction of the non-domestic waste source program.
Well, it seems like we are moving along. I'm glad to hear that. I want to congratulate Half Moon Bay, John Dowdy, and Maz on putting together a great draft and a good starting place. I think if we're all on board with it, we could make this a really short item, but what we need is money. And I made a motion to try and get this going with money, and I think we need to discuss where we're going to get the money to run this program. I think we have it available in our budget, and so it would seem we could have an urgency item to fund this program, to make programmatic and other necessary changes to the ordinance and resolution, and to continue with the places we were starting, including more outreach to the member agencies and member agency managers. And so I am curious if somebody would like to make that motion so we can fund it.
I would like to make the motion.
Thank you. I'd be happy to second that. And the motion
I think
is,
let her state.
I would like to state the motion. I move
Please.
approval of staff recommendation contained in the staff report dated November 22, 2021, with the following additional provisions. The program include provisions for and guidelines addressing testing protocols for existing and future NDWSCP permittees as applicable. 2, the program incorporate provisions for a shared database listing of all permittees hosted by SAM. And 3, the program include provisions for member agency notice to SAM of filing and processing of certain NDWSCP applications.
and this is to fund, I just want to make sure that we're starting the procedure or starting the program and then working on the changes as outlined in the draft from Half Moon Bay with those 3 additions.
Okay, Jeremy had his hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair Dye. I had Kitchen had wanted me to bring up. He and I had talked earlier today about a couple comments I had, and they're minor, but just on the spreadsheet. And I don't know if the board member making the motion would be willing to consider this. But so one of the things that the JPA agreement sets out certain criteria for an industrial management program, which was ultimately implemented as the non-domestic source program. And one of the things that's been a little challenging was shifting to more of a I shouldn't say that, to more of a shared responsibility between member agencies and SAM, which I think actually is in a lot of ways something that could work really well. But there is still a JPA provision that requires that the lead for permitting is SAM. And so I've been comfortable with the idea of that it would meet the intent of the JPA agreement if the permitting entity was the member agencies, but it was doing it as an agent of SAM or something along those lines. Just to be clear that SAM has overall oversight, but the member agencies are actually conferring with SAM and doing the actual permitting. And I think for the most part, the spreadsheet lays that out. But I have one change just on in the line where it says determine if and I don't know if folks have it in front of them. I don't know what the best way to facilitate this. I mean, Kishan, can you bring this up or what's the best way to do that?
Do you want to, I can allow you to share your screen. Do you have it on your screen?
Yeah, let me try closing one thing. I don't want to overshare. That's one thing on a laptop. All right, let's see. I'll give it a shot here. All right. Can everybody see the spreadsheet?
Not as yet. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. So if folks can see the language I inserted in red. So all I did was I just inserted SAM at 2 locations. And so the clarification, because if whether a permit is required really needs to be something that SAM has to have some custody of that, because ultimately they need to be in a position to be able to say whether, I mean, if they're concerned that a particular discharge is likely to cause problems in the system, they need to certainly be part of that. So the language I just recommended in red is what I think would prevent any incongruity with the JPA agreement.
I'm fine with that.
We don't have a second yet, but I would say that we would support that. I don't think it really
Second.
this. And this, let me just make the comment that I don't believe that this particular spreadsheet is a final either. We expect it to be potentially additionally modified by the agency managers working with SAM. Yes?
You should include that in your motion, if that's the intent, then the board should.
Is that the intent? Is that the intent, Director Penrose?
No, it was not. I thought this was a final.
Not my understanding, but I can live with it.
There was another sentence which Jeremy had added. I don't know why it's not in the spreadsheet. There was a comment on in the row which says MA and SAM. SAM is in red. It says and SAM review inspection operation. Below that you have MA coordinates with SAM if permit is required using criteria in 19-05. And he said, and SAM is the final deciding authority to determine if a permit is required or not. Put that in the comment which you wanted me to add in the spreadsheet.
That's okay. I think the language I added as agent of SAM. I think the clarification is there that the action is being taken, under the supervision of SAM's overall management of the program. And then in the next one, we see, if we look on lines 19, it does say member agency incorporates any SAM edits and submits draft to discharger, which means at least as I read it, it means that if there are changes that SAM requests, they need to be made.
Barbara and Jeremy, this is Rick. I can't see hands. I'd like to make just a quick tweak to Jeremy's comment real quick, if I could do that.
Sure.
It might look better.
Yes.
Under the draft and issue permit section where you were saying SAM should be in charge, what I would propose is the letter go out by SAM, but have it co-signed by the member agencies. I think that would look better. because the member agencies are also basically co-signing the letter. And I think that looks better going to all the businesses in the community.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm supporting all of this.
So what line, are you, Rick, are
What
you able to
letter?
see this? Yeah,
I
what
don't see
line
the
are you-
letter. I don't see anything about a letter.
No, this is issuing the permit. I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay. So is
You
it
said
line
that-
21?
You said that Sam has to issue the permit. I would like to broaden a little bit that with Sam issuing the permit, if it's on Sam letterhead, I guess, but also have the member agency signature block on there also, so you're both signing it. So that gives the member agencies saying, hey, we're representing you, it's from us too. I think that would look better.
I mean, I just added language. MA issues permit co-signed by Sam to discharger with copy to Sam. MA collects permit fees. Is that?
However you want to do that, fine.
I want to make sure that Director Penrose accepts that, but Director Ruddick has her hand up. So why don't you go ahead and address this since you were the seconder. You're muted.
I don't support that change. We want the member agencies to be the entities that are working with the local businesses and not confuse the issue. So I support and second Deborah's motion, but not that addition. And Jeremy's is, I have no problem with that.
Yeah. Director Lohman, I understand your point. I mean, maybe look at line 19 here, and I guess the reason I guess I'm okay, and I think what the point you're getting at is what happens if there's disagreement? What happens if there is and so I think what and this is a framework right here, and this is ultimately going to need to be translated into the member agency sewer use ordinances. It's going to have to be that way it can be enforced, but and we probably need to amend. We're going to need to amend the existing 19-1 to incorporate this. So we're going to have to work on that, but. This is a list of concepts here as to what the program looks like, is my understanding. And so it says member agency incorporates any SAM edits and submits draft to discharger. So I think we're okay, but I understand your point.
Well, I thought your original comment was since Sam has the license, Sam has to issue the permit. So my comment was if Sam's issuing the permit, I would recommend co-signing it with the member agency to get the member agency's name on there also.
Right now, it's written that the member agency issues the permit based on.
I thought that we were saying Sam has to issue the permit because they're the license holder.
I'm amenable, and I interpret the JPA as it can be issued by the member agency as long as it's done under the cognizance of SAM. It's a slight difference, but it is a difference, and I believe it's consistent with the intent of the JPA. That the point of the JPA is to ensure that permits are being issued under the standards that SAM has created and under the supervision of SAM. And so as long as that's happening, I think it's okay the member agencies are issuing the permit. We just need to make sure that SAM has the ability, if they're not comfortable with the permit, to say, we're not comfortable with this permit being issued.
All right, I have to show Director Ruddick and Director Clark. Director Lohman, do you have more that you want to say here, or I can't see your hand?
I wanted Jeremy to comment on that. So.
Okay. Director Clark, did you want to comment?
Yes, I don't support this addition to this. I fully support this as a concept that will be worked out between SAM and the member agencies, and as you go through this whole multi-step process, it's cooperation and collaboration are built in strongly already. So I don't think this needs to be signed off by SAM. Further, SAM doesn't issue permits. Member agency issues all the sewer permits in the entire SAM service area are issued by the member agencies, not by SAM. So I don't see why the member agencies shouldn't issue these permits as well.
Yeah, so
I have a question.
Okay, Jeremy can Jeremy answer that, and then Catherine?
Yeah, could you speak to JPA Amendment 5 in your answer?
yeah, I'm reading from the language. Let's see. The industrial waste standards and regulations shall head down. Are you guys seeing the JPA agreement? I've switched documents. Do you see that, or okay?
No.
Yeah, it didn't switch.
You get the amendment. Get the
All right, so
amendment
I'm gonna stop sharing and then reshare. So let me give that a shot, okay? This is the consolidated JPA agreement. So it says the industrial waste standards and regulations shall authorize the issuance of industrial waste discharge permits thereunder and provide that such permits will be issued by the authority. So that's where we get the authority in the permits. Shall authorize field inspectors or other employees of the authority to act as enforcement agents of the member agencies. So that's
Where are you on this page?
Actually, Jeremy, you should go to the amendment 5, which is just 2 pages.
Okay.
That's the one which I sent you last week.
Well, why don't you share that, Kishan?
I'll have to pull it up from the website.
Yeah, I don't have it.
Go to the website.
Okay.
It might mess up my Zoom, so I don't want to do that. But
Okay.
go to the website, go to the amendment 5 on the JPA, and it's just a 2-page document. That's what Clemens is talking about.
Okay.
While you're bringing that up, I'd like to ask Director Penrose if you're all right with the changes that Jeremy made as the maker of the motion.
Yes, I am.
I am too. All right. And Director Ruddock, as the seconder, are you okay with those changes? Okay. All right. Then let's wait to look at this question about an additional change.
Okay, Amendment 5. Yeah, it's the same. That's the same language.
Okay. You want to share it?
Sure, but yeah, I mean, this it was consolidated into the other, but yeah, sure. Can everybody see it? So it's the third, it's under the sub number 9. It's the third full paragraph after that.
Yeah. The industrial waste standards and regulations shall authorize the issuance of industrial waste discharge permits thereunder and provide that such permits will be issued by the authority. Is that what you're mentioning?
Yes, it's the same language.
Yeah. And, I'm not the attorney and I'm not the expert on the thing. I was just my understanding from all the conversations over the last 10 years that, quote, Sam issued the permit.
Right.
If that's not true, I can withdraw my comments, but I just thought that was the rule and I want to follow as many rules as possible. That's all.
No, it is. And you're reading it correctly. I guess what I'm trying to go to what the intent was of this provision. And as long as Sam is, as long as the it's a little creative, but if the member agencies are issuing the permits as the agents of Sam, then the authority is still issuing it. That's the way I'm reading it. And so I'm amenable to that. I don't think it requires a JPA agreement amendment, provided Sam is involved and it has the authority to say whether someone is required to obtain a permit, and then has the authority to say with finality what the contents of the permit are required to be. So that's why, and I've had this discussion with others before, and I understand the counter arguments, but that's why I'm amenable to the approach that's currently being proposed.
That's fine.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Director Slater-Carter.
I think it's important that we state things as clearly as possible, both for intent and practice. because this is going to be around for a long time. And I have always been perplexed by the way one can say it all depends on what is. It all depends on who's issuing the permit. So I'm a little concerned by that. I want to go back to the fact that since I read on this document that it is a draft, I expected there were going to be changes, and that there were not substantive changes, but changes to make this clearer and much more workable. Like I say, I think it's a great start, but there are issues in making sure that we're all on the same page with the language. And I think a meeting on TV is not necessarily the best place to be doing that. Somebody said something one time about making sausage, writing law on television. So I would hope that the intent is to work on making sure the language is as clear and unambiguous as possible and bring this back. It doesn't mean that in the meantime we can't start, because we already have started with improving and reissuing the reissuing of this program. We've made quite a bit of progress, and we have businesses on our side. And there's been public meetings, and more public meetings are always good, and keeping things very clear is good. So I would like to make sure that what we're doing is working towards not approving a draft, but our managers and attorneys all work together to put together a final that we can discuss and approve.
Director Penrose, you have your hand up, and I have a comment after that.
Yes. This is not a draft. This is a guideline document. I made a motion asking that we approve this document as amended this evening by our attorney, and I would like to have a vote.
Okay. Director Reddick, do you agree as a seconder with that?
Yeah, I mean, these are guidelines, that's even stated in the staff report. And, the member agencies and SAM staff are going to, work out the details. So what we're really authorizing are a set of guidelines about how we want to relate and operate. So, yeah, I agree with Deborah.
Jeremy.
Yeah, just maybe this will help a little bit. So we're going to need a resolution that amends the current regulations. And I think we can provide some, because these are just guidelines, I think we can provide some greater clarity that will hopefully address the concerns raised by Director Lohman and Director Slater-Carter about the role for SAM. And I think we can do that. But the guidelines themselves, as stated tonight, I think they're guidelines, right? And so they don't actually change an ordinance. They don't change regulations. They're just they're a roadmap.
Well, I'm comfortable with that.
Yes, we've had.
I'm good.
Good. We've had the question called. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Director Slater, sorry, Kishen.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So are we suggesting that we go ahead with this guideline, the way the motion has taken place, and then we bring back to the board with the amended resolution after the managers look at it and after the respective councils look at it, and then we bring it back to the board for approval? Is that right? Is that my understanding? Because unless the resolution and ordinance, the resolution is approved, we really do not have a working document for NDWSCP. This is a guideline document. So based on this guideline, we need to make an amendment in the resolution.
No.
So does the resolution remain unchanged?
The resolution remains as is, as changed by Jeremy Jungris this evening. And that was the motion to pass that. It's a guideline document. It is not a draft proposal.
Right.
I'm saying that the resolution is a follow-up action.
Yes. Yeah, the resolution is a, correct.
19-01 needs to be amended to adopt this guideline.
Correct.
That's what I
So
meant.
we're not amending the resolution. We're not amending that ordinance tonight, but we're
Correct.
supporting the guidelines.
You would need to have language of the actual revised ordinance before you could do that. We would need to bring that. The
So
ordinance
we
itself,
follow the resolution.
I thought you were saying that this was consistent with the ordinance in your.
no, but there are some things that are going to need to change in the ordinance. I mean, we're doing some different things. That this language is going to have to be changed. There's
Okay,
no question about that.
but I think we're ready to move forward. Does everyone have an understanding of where the motion is to approve this as a guideline as amended by our attorney?
I have one more question, please.
Sure.
When are we going to implement this program? Are we going to start working on it now and implementing it? Or are we, now that we'll have guidelines, or are we going to wait until the ordinance is finished?
Anyone want to
Good
take
question.
that?
That's a question for Jeremy. Jeremy, aren't we supposed to get the resolution approved, adopted before we start working on it?
No, I mean, I think what you could do if the board was so inclined, the board could approve the guideline, and then the board, as an urgency item, if there's an urgent need to move forward with some of the work that to include revising the ordinance and potentially some of the individual member agency sewer use ordinances that will need to occur. The board could add an urgency item to provide additional funding if that was the inclination of the board. We'd have to vote to add it as an urgency item if that's what you want to do, or we could do it at the next meeting, but that would mean the funding to do some of the work would need to likely wait.
Yeah, but which resolution do we adopt? Because the 19-01 is getting changed.
Right. Well, we're going to have to separately amend. We're going to have a replacement amendment or replacement resolution for 19-01. That's what we're going to have to do. So what's being adopted tonight is a roadmap for what the new resolution is going to say. Right. It's telling staff what changes we're going to need to make and bring back to the board, because it's a different direction in a couple of areas.
I'd like to hear from John Dowdy and then Matthew.
Thank you, and Catherine, thank you for your kind words. It's all Moz, and if it messes up, then it's all Moz. So, I thank you for letting me speak. All I wanted to say is that I think I've described it with some of my colleagues is what we're really trying to implement is best practices, and I think as long as we're implementing best practices, we're moving forward to protect the interest of the public, to protect the interest of SAM, and then protect the interest of our own agencies. I think Jeremy's characterization is a fair one, which is that we will, as soon as this is done tonight, assuming it's approved, the managers, we will be proceeding toward implementing this and moving it forward. There are a series of actions that must occur and legal actions that must occur, but I see very few of those stopping us from being able to move forward with most of the implementation. We'll need to follow up and follow through with those legal actions and dealing that. But from the most part, this is a program, one in part, we've been operating independently to some extent with our contractor anyway, but I think we can all get on the same point and address that issue. So I think our interests are the same, and I'm confident that we can move this forward again if we use the idea of best practices and the public health safety in the interest of everybody.
Thank you.
Happy to answer any questions if you might have one, but I'll shut down anyway.
Does anyone have questions for John Dowdy? Matthew.
My question was just, as Catherine said, do we have the money approved to start the program? Is there anything we can do? Because, it's taken 6 months so far. Can we, instead of waiting for the resolution in 2 more weeks or whatever, are we able to start the program, or do we have to wait 2 weeks and get a resolution passed and approve some money? What is the process to start as soon as we can?
John Dowdy just said he feels that they can start working on this right away.
Can I, so
Yes, go ahead.
if I, through the chair,
Yes, please.
from at least from the city's perspective, we already are basically doing this work, and we built these into our sewer rates. My conversation with, I think, both of the managers, for the most part, I won't speak for Clemens at all, and I don't want to speak for Chuck, but I think the scope and the amount of money, effort in this from the collection agency's perspective or member agency's perspective is really not a significant dollar amount. How you address the issues of the cost to SAM is another factor. Clearly, one of the reasons that we were kind of wanting to move forward in this manner was that we didn't want to be charged twice for the same work. So part of the issue is making sure there's a clear delineation of what SAM's role and responsibility and cost are and what the member agencies are. And, we all know one of the challenges of SAM is that you don't have a rate structure per se. And so almost everything that's generated in terms of revenues for you is through the allocation from the agency. So our interest is already there in terms of trying to save everybody money, because it saves us money. But frankly, we're absorbing that and have rolled those costs for this program into our existing sewer rates that were approved. And I truly believe that all the agencies pretty much have those built within their structure, or you can develop your own fee schedule for how you charge and deal with it. My recommendation would be simply this: if there's a belief that there needs to be additional funds or whatever, do that through the local collection agencies, not SAM. It's just a cleaner way to go about it, but that's only from me. But we've taken care of that on our side.
Director Clark's hand was up first, but Catherine, I see you have your actual hand up. Matthew, were you next or?
Matthew's next.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, I rather than just echo what John has said, to the question of when can we get started, I think it's already moot. I know that our member agency is working on this now, and we've just heard that the city is working on it now. And there's no reason with these guidelines in place why this work can't be continued. And then the details spelled out in a resolution that has to go through several attorneys, and is not going to be probably addressed even next meeting.
Out of the ICU? Out of the ICU. Good.
Sorry.
Great.
ICU sort of gets your attention, doesn't it? I think we should adopt these guidelines as amended, and I know GCSC will continue on the road we've already begun, because
Director Penrose, you need to mute.
Because we have already started on this. It's not a simple task. There are many aspects to it, and finding the initial data that's needed for the first several steps here will take some time, and we've already started the process, as I said. As for funding, this program, since its inception, has been funded by those who pay the fees for their permits. There has been and is money in the SAM budget that's projected to come in to cover this program. And I don't know how we could possibly come up with a number right now of how much money additional money, if any, will be needed. It'll be a total shot in the dark. And so let's just adopt these guidelines. The agencies are already working on this problem, and we'll get more clarity. And if more funding is needed, we'll get that too. Thanks.
Catherine, your hand is up, but also Kishan would like to speak.
I'll go after Keishan.
Okay, I wanted to clarify to Director Clark's comments. There is no funding in the budget for the NDWSCP program. And no money has been collected on the NDWSCP program. So if we have to move forward, we definitely need the funding. And that was the reason it was brought to the board a couple of weeks back.
In the environmental portion of the budget, there is money that has been being used for this program. It's been in there forever.
Yes. Yes, Director Clark, that's precisely the reason I was waiting for you to ask that question. If you could please allow me to share my screen. I've got the environmental budget and I can explain to you what it is. Please give me a minute. Is this the one that you're talking of? Can you see my screen?
I don't see numbers.
Okay, Environmental Compliance Division. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the part of the budget which you're talking of, Environmental Compliance Division. I know it talks of NPDES permit and NDWSCP program. Now, this is the amount that you're talking of. It's called professional services, and it's $100,000, 365, which was in 21-22. And this professional services is mainly for sustaining the NPDES permit, which is the lab fees. All the extra sampling, all the lab fees, all the lab costs, all the expenditure that has occurred is all goes into this professional services, which is $100,365. And to date, we have spent about $85,000 only for retaining the NPDES permit. So there is nothing here for NDWSCP. This is the amount which you're talking about, $183,267. This has got everything else added, but the professional services is $100,365. And if we have to do the NDWSCP program, we need to get funded. And that's the reason I brought it back to the board a couple of weeks back. So
go back to the top paragraph, please.
Come again?
Go back up to the top paragraph, please.
Yes.
Provide services and oversight in 4 areas, ... non-domestic waste source control program. There it is. It says that in the budget that we passed every year. And are you saying that that's a inaccurate description?
No, it's not an inaccurate description. In order to keep the budget low, we just added 100,000, whatever it is. We did not see all this coming up with the plan upset and all that. Otherwise, we would have put in more money there.
Okay, now go to the revenue part of this.
Yes. Here you go. NDWSCP fees. We just got $2,800, $2,800 in 2021. And that was because of the plant upset, we stopped getting the leachate from Ox Mountain. And they were giving us a good amount of revenue. And we stopped all that in the month of October 2020. And there's no revenue coming in. There's hardly any revenue coming in on the NDWSCP fees.
So,
well, I don't think we can solve
for the last 20 years, we've had this in the environmental budget, and it's not been adequate or being spent for that.
No, I'm sorry to say, Director Clark, but for the last 20 years, we've been doing just fog inspection, and that is only for the establishments which have been given by the member agencies. That's totally about 28 establishments, considering Montara and GCSD. And that doesn't cost a whole lot of money.
It has been said several times that until 2014, when everything went, nobody did it, but the program fell apart. that the funds were coming in and were being spent for this very program.
The program did not fall apart, Director Clark. Let me correct you. In 2015, we did it. 2017, we did it. We did it in 2019, we did it in 2021. The only year we did not do was 2020, please.
If the program has been being done, what's funded it?
Yes,
You
we were
can't say
collecting
it is being done and it's not being done, which has been consistently, we've heard this. The whole program was halted. The program was also completely continued. Those two things are incompatible.
Okay, we are not going to resolve this issue right now here. So please,
let me
spend
ask
some
you
time.
this. Let me ask you this. How would we come up with a number right now tonight for the amount of funding that we should authorize?
Point of order. There is a motion on the table. We have gotten away from the motion. I am asking for a vote.
I've advocated that we vote for this right now.
Yes. All right. I'm not sure, Jeremy, if people continue to discuss it, can I just go ahead and call for the vote?
Yeah, you can call the question and
Call the
you
question,
can vote.
please. I think we have had a sufficient discussion, and the issues that remain about financing and more implementation details, and the resolution can all come back at a following meeting, because it's clear to me we can get started.
So it seems to me we're delaying again, getting this program fully functioning as fast as possible.
No,
And it's been going on with these delays
Catherine, we're
since
calling the question.
January.
We're calling the question.
I want my comments in the minutes that there are agencies on this board that are
The
delaying.
question has been called. It has.
Thank you,
priority.
Deborah.
We have a roll call, please.
Director Roddick,
Yes.
Director Loman,
Yes.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Penrose,
Yes.
Director Slater Carter.
I'm going to abstain because we don't have funding.
Chair Dye.
Motion passes.
Did you vote yes, Chair Dye?
Yes.
I
I'm
don't know.
sorry.
For some reason, when you're voting, it's
When I vote, it does go, yes.
yeah, it's the
aye,
strangest thing.
aye,
So yes.
I'm supporting this. And I look forward to the additional information but I also have confidence in our general managers that they can get started on this right away. I see 3 hands still up. Are we ready to move on to the next item, or do people still want to speak?
Jeremy, your hands up.
Yeah, I mean, I was just an observation that the general manager does have authority already within his inherent pre-delegated authority to go up to a certain amount. So perhaps that's a solution. I don't know if that's too late to bring that up or not, but I just perhaps that's something he could discuss with the chair, and maybe that might help things move forward. But I will mention that, Sam has to have a program here. Sam has to have oversight over this. So Sam it can't just be the member agencies. It's going to have to be Sam too. But
I think that's very clear from what was passed tonight, that Sam is a
sure, understood.
a significant part of making this work. It's going to be a partnership, a collaboration, right?
Got it.
So I think this is great. I'm glad we finally reached this point. So any more comments on this item? All right, let us move on to the report on the safety inspection, which I have to say was a very impressive document that is in the agenda. So, we have the staff report.
Yep. So as mentioned in the staff report, the safety inspection is performed by a third party, and the third party we hired this time was Dual. Excuse me. So we had the first inspection on October 18th, 2021. And we did notice a couple of instances which needed to be improved. So staff worked on it, got all the improvements done, and called the inspector back for a re-inspection. And that was done on November 1st, 2021. We ended up with 2 instances of class 2 category. The class 2 category is primarily the ones which are serious and may cause injury, occupational illness, or environmental or property damage. So there were 2 instances of class 2. One of them has already been addressed. We placed a PO for a fixed ladder, and we put up signs saying that the existing ladder should not be used. And just to let you guys know, this ladder has never been in use for the past so many years. There's no requirement for anybody to climb up and check anything on the decant tank. just in case, but we never used it for past so many years, maybe 10, 15 years. And the second instance of class 2 is a crack forming on the cinder block wall in the generator building at Montera Pump Station. It appears to be superficial, but in order to get more details of it, we are in the process of hiring a structural engineer who would do an evaluation, and then we'll see what mitigation needs to be done to address that. So staff is here to answer any questions. Anything on the staff on the safety report, please.
Director Penrose.
Yes, thank you. That was a very complete and thorough report, and I appreciated all the detail that was in it. I'm wondering if all of staff has been informed of the safety violations and asked to follow the protocols that are now set in place for, I think, in terms of plugging a power plug into another power plug. If all staff knows, that's my question, or has it just been fixed by some of staff?
All of staff know it, and also on the ones which are not required to be operated, we put caution tape and adequate information so that people don't use it.
Thank you.
Any further comments? Again, my compliments on this. I mean, going through it obviously took some staff time to not only meet with them and have them go over the facilities, but also then to look at the problems, come up with ways to solve pretty much all of them. The 2 that haven't been fully solved, you're in the process of solving. So I think excellent work by staff on this, and a great thing to be doing. How often do you do these safety reviews?
We do that every other year.
Well, I think people should be impressed at how thorough this was and how seriously it was taken by staff. Anything further on this topic? Moving forward to monthly manager's report.
Yep. Any questions? Staff is here to answer. All the details are in the packet.
I have a question on the flow chart on page 105. It's actually very interesting. I don't know if it's possible to share that, but I think people would be interested in that.
Percent distribution?
Yes.
You want that on the screen?
Yes, is that possible?
Oh, I don't have it with me. Can you share your screen? Do you have it on your screen?
No, well, I could maybe find it in the agenda, but I did print it out because I can't flip back and forth during the meeting. Well,
you can ask your question. We'll try to answer it.
Well, it's more of an observation. If you look at this chart, it shows the amount of rain at the plant, and it shows the flows at the 3 agencies. It's interesting to me that on this one, immediately after the high point of the second storm, the flows from Half Moon Bay dipped 10%, which seemed like a strange thing. And then the same thing happened for GCSD in the middle of the second storm. But I'm thinking that's probably because the wet weather storage, some of the flows went into the wet weather storage tanks and therefore weren't recorded at that time. So I was curious about these what this chart shows about how the flows changed during these major storms. I don't think it's really something I can ask a question without looking at the chart.
Tim, do you want to answer the question?
Do you know the chart I mean, Tim? Do you have it?
I don't have the chart in front of me. I have a general idea what you're talking about. Do you have the dates by chance?
Well, yes.
It was between the first and second storms, right?
No, it's right at, it's really the second big storm is where
The second big storm. So what happened? Probably, I'm going off memory when I did. Hey, look, there's
Yep.
Actually, this is not the one. though. It's
that one's not going to
102.
show it.
That's page 102. We want 105 because they're different. Which was
104. Yep, the next one, this one.
this one right here. See how, now they're at the top, that's Half Moon Bay's flows, and the purple is the big rain. And the flows from Half Moon Bay came down after the big rain, and I was just curious about that.
So we ended up, we were holding flows at the stations. Everything north was holding flows.
So go down to the bottom for that part then. Yeah, there we go. So see, so the red line is GCSD. So the flow from GCSD went down because it went into the wet weather storage?
Yeah, and we weren't, and there was a long period of time where we weren't, the amount we were pumping from the GCSD area would have been less. It would have carried over into the next day. It's easier to look at when I have this stuff in front of me, like on my own paperwork.
And then but it's interesting that, you know, and you can see that the flow from Montero, which is the green, went up, which you would expect during the especially during the second big storm, and then gradually reduced. But then if you go up to the top, to the flows from Half Moon Bay, they stayed pretty much, they didn't go up as a result of the first storm. And then they went down after the second storm. And I was just curious about that. I like these graphs, so I always look at them. Well, I don't know. It doesn't, it's more just curiosity because it didn't make sense to me.
Barbara, I think that's an excellent point. And maybe in the future, there could be some kind of asterisk or something where the holding tanks and the Walker tank are being used to illustrate that they're being, because if you just read this and you forget about those, you're kind of wondering what's going on about the holding tanks. You're wondering what's going on.
Yes. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
And so I wondered if when the wet weather storage and the Walker tank started sending, catching up on the flow, if that's when less was coming in from Half Moon Bay because more was coming in from the north. But anyway, I don't need a full explanation. I just was curious. I thought there may be something quick, and I wanted to point out what seemed like a kind of anomaly.
Yeah, I'd have to look at page 2 and everything and the raw flow data. Just to see what the charts did or didn't do.
Okay. Well, thank you for such a complete report. There's a lot of interesting stuff in those managers' reports. Anything further on the manager's report? Thank you for sharing your screen, Director Reddick.
Any more questions or comments or clarifications?
I don't think so. If Director Reddick, if you can stop screen sharing. There we go. Thank you very much. And moving on to attorney's report.
Good evening, board members. Does anybody want to hear about the latest, greatest on COVID vaccination requirements? I could give you an update on that, but if no one's all that interested, I'll just move on. Okay, I see Director Ruddock shaking her head, which, she's always kind of a barometer for me, so I'm going to, there are some things that have happened. If anybody wants to hear about the latest, greatest, shoot. Yeah.
And Sam has done a really good job of having the staff do all the things they're supposed to do.
Okay.
Correct?
Yes, they've been very active, and Christopher Boucher has been extremely helpful in working with Kishen to navigate.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope, nothing else to report.
Director's reports. Anyone have anything to report?
This is Rick. I've got a couple items too.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'll go with, I don't know if folks are following LAFCO issues, but at the last LAFCO meeting and in prior emails, Martha Poyatos, who has been working for the county for 28 years, decided in her cute little quote to me, she says that she is going to be reducing her sphere of influence and she's going to be retiring from LAFCO at the end of the year. She's done a lot of amazing stuff for everybody. She's getting lots of the big formal letters from all the big organizations. I would encourage local organizations to send her a thank you letter for all the work she's done for us. What I really liked is she had a quote at the end. She's paraphrasing A.A. Milne of Winnie the Pooh fame. But her quote was, "How lucky am I to have had a career that makes saying goodbye so hard." So I think she's done a good job for everybody. She's helped me out a lot of times explaining stuff, but I wanted to make sure everybody knew about that because sometimes it doesn't make it out to the press. The second comment is if anybody was following the redistricting plans that were initiated because of the census changes, the Board of Supervisors created a commission of 15 people who held multiple public meetings. During all of these public meetings, 2 maps submitted by the public rose to prominence, I guess. One that would help unify some disparate, underprivileged communities on the Bayside, and one which would help gather more unincorporated people to give them more power. At the end of the commission meetings, the commissioners decided to pass both maps and recommendations on to the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors then held public meetings in which massive amounts of public input came for the 2 submitted plans. The Board of Supervisors then decided, no, we're not going to do any of that. We're going to pick our plan, which is the minimal number of changes possible. They did that without a single letter of support from anybody in the public. And that's what we're going to have for the next 10 years. So hope you like the current distribution of supervisors because that's what we got for the next 10 years. That's it.
Thank you.
I'd like to add a note to Rick's comment, and that is that the 2 that the Citizen Commission picked to send to the Board of Supervisors took into account the demographic changes throughout the community. The one that the Board of Supervisors chose does not address those demographic changes. Thank you.
Okay. Anything further on this? Any other directors' reports? Topics for future board consideration? Anything there? Anything, Kishan?
No.
Okay. Moving on to, I guess we will adjourn to closed session.
I don't know that we, I guess, Kishan, do we need a closed session this evening?
No, I don't have anything to discuss in the closed session.
Nor do I.
An early night.
Well, happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving and
Happy Thanksgiving.
Right.
Happy Thanksgiving.